Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the UN says that the arrest of South Sudan's Vice President brings it closer to civil war again. Riek Machar and his Interior Minister, his wife, are detained at home in Juba by troops loyal to his longtime rival, President Salva Kiir. Also, despite UN evidence to the contrary, Rwanda's foreign minister denies having troops in neighbouring DR Congo. There, the Kigali-backed M23 insurgents' lightning advance has ravaged communities seized since January. Nevertheless, locals, like those of the town of Sake, tentatively return, hoping to recover some semblance of normality in the wake of conflict. In Kenya's stability, peace and strong economy make it a top destination for people across the region and, in fact, the continent. More and more fans of what it's got to offer are heading over, looking for ways to invest in their futures and vision. But first, the UK's told its nationals in South Sudan to leave. And the UN's warned that the country's been pushed closer to conflict by the house arrest of Vice President Riek Machar. Now, he and the Interior Minister, his wife, were detained at their home in Juba by forces loyal to President Salva Kiir. All of this amidst rising tension between the long-standing rivals and their supporters. Now, the two are signatories to a rapidly unravelling 2018 peace deal that was meant to end a 5-year civil war. Olivia Bizot tells us more.
The party of first Vice President Riek Machar has said that government forces stormed Machar's home, arrested both him and his wife, who's also South Sudan's Interior Minister, and disarmed his bodyguards. Now, the regional bloc IGAD has said that this arrest derails South Sudan's fragile peace. The UN has echoed these concerns, warning that South Sudan is on the brink of yet another devastating civil war. Now, this all comes as tensions have been escalating, especially in Upper Nile State, between government forces and the White Army, a militia group linked to Machar. And then this week, the violence got closer to Juba after air and ground attacks targeted an opposition army base and training centre. The situation has been further complicated by the presence of Ugandan troops to support the government. Riek Machar has said that this goes directly against the 2018 peace agreement, which specifically prohibits the presence of foreign troops on South Sudanese soil. Now, international reactions have been swift. The US has called for the immediate release of Machar, while here in Kenya, President William Ruto has said that he's spoken to Salva Kiir and is going to be sending a special envoy to South Sudan to de-escalate tensions. Now, the situation is at a critical juncture at the moment, and the coming days will determine whether South Sudan's hard-won peace will survive or whether it will collapse into yet another war.
Now, South Sudan never really recovered from the war that technically ended in 2018. And with over 9 million people still needing some kind of humanitarian help there, a relapse could be devastating to the most vulnerable. At the heart of the tensions are the political antagonisms between the country's two most powerful men. Clarice Fortuny tells us more.
The arrest of South Sudanese first Vice President Riek Machar, longtime rival to President Salva Kiir, could now plunge the country back into war. A huge contrast with this historic moment in 2018, which saw the rivals shaking hands, validating a fragile peace deal. The pair have been locked in a power struggle ever since the country gained independence in 2011. That saw Kiir take over as president and Machar vice president. Just 2 years later, he challenged Kiir's leadership and was fired, along with his entire cabinet. By December, Machar was accused of plotting a coup, and fighting broke out between the rival factions in the capital, Juba. That triggered a civil war. Amidst international pressure and threats of sanctions, President Kiir signed a peace deal in August 2015, which would have returned Machar as his number two. But that broke down and failed to stop the fighting. In September 2018, another agreement was signed aimed at ending a conflict that had already claimed around 400,000 lives. Again, Machar was appointed South Sudan's first vice president. And again, the pattern so often repeated in the country's short history resumed, as the pair's relationship over the last 7 years became increasingly strained amid ethnic tensions and sporadic violence.
Well, next door in Sudan, the paramilitary rapid support forces have said that there will be no retreat and no surrender. This in the wake of the army's recapturing of the centre of the capital. The RSF has been battling the army for almost 2 years now, and over the last week lost control of Khartoum, which it had held since the start of the conflict. The RSF still holds parts of the south and nearly all of Darfur in the west. Naba Mohideen breaks it all down for us.
Since the Sudanese army recaptured main locations in the capital Khartoum and announced that it has fully controlled the capital, there are reports showing that large troops of the army and of the Sudanese army and police forces are securing the entrances of the city and also securing main bridges and main roads inside the capital. There are also some reports and verified videos that people are celebrating in the streets. They were celebrating the great victory not only in Khartoum but in many Sudanese states. People are very hopeful that they can return to Khartoum again, but millions of people are waiting for the official announcement of voluntary return to Khartoum. On the ground also there are some reports of RSF retreating from the capital towards Kordofan and Darfur, so fears are very high. There are grave risks that Khartoum may be attacked again by RSF, especially Omdurman, because it's bordering Kordofan and it's bordering Darfur, where RSF are controlling 4 states out of 5 states in Kordofan, and there is only 1 state right now under the control of the army and allied groups, which is North Darfur, Al-Fashir. So fears right now that the war may extend and be escalating in Darfur and especially in North Darfur. But also there is some news of some allied groups fighting with the army that they are right now closing the main bridge used to be used by RSF to retreat from the capital, which is Jebel Aulia Bridge. That means the fighting will extend out of the capital. Also, RSF has denied all of these victory by the Sudanese army and said they withdraw by themselves from the capital and they are it's a tactical plan and they were not defeated by the army. They are repositioning themselves to have new gains. In the same time, the Sudanese military said they will not be part of any political resolution or any political operation in the country, and they will prepare the country for a free elections that will come soon, but without showing any plan for that elections.
Naba Mohideen there in Port Sudan. Now, a Kenyan police officer on mission in Haiti is missing after having been ambushed by suspected gang members. He's part of a Kenya-led UN-backed mission to the Caribbean country, which was sent in aiming to help police there rein in the stranglehold gangs have on every aspect of life. About 700 Kenyan officers were deployed. In February, another Kenyan officer was fatally shot during the operation, which has sparked pushback from the Kenyan opposition. Now, the Congolese army has accused M23 rebels of not sticking to a commitment to pull out of the mining hub of Walikale. The insurgents' lightning advance through the east of the country since January has cost thousands of lives. The UN has produced satellite images showing Rwandan soldiers supporting the rebels. The complex conflict has given rise to a battle of rhetoric between Kigali and Kinshasa. Speaking to France 24 on Thursday, the Rwandan foreign minister claimed again that his troops were not part of the Congolese rebels' push against their government.
I'm telling you that Rwanda has no soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have defensive measures along our border, military operations to deal with the threat of the FDLR and other groups, which have been deployed by Congolese President Tshisekedi, who has said on several occasions that he wants to overthrow the Rwandan government.
Meanwhile, people have started to head back to some of the cities that were at the heart of the battling against the M23. Amongst them, Sake, which was one of the towns where geolocated images of Rwandan troops were picked up by researchers, and it's where forces were based ahead of the M23's seizure of the provincial capital of Goma just days later. Take a look.
Sake, a destroyed city, still bears the scars of the battle. Christophe's house has been gutted by bombs. He tries to salvage what he can. He hopes to cobble together some kind of tent to shelter his family.
I don't yet have the means to repair my house. We're waiting to see if the government will be able to help us.
Sake's people are repairing their homes as best they can. There are some small signs of a halting return to normality. Street vendors are back. Flour and potatoes are again available for sale. But for the past 2 months, the city has been without electricity and running water. Locals have to use this small river.
We've all come here to get water.
This trickle is relied on to fill hundreds of containers. Amina does her laundry.
At home, no water comes out of the taps. Here, at least, there is water in this river to allow me to at least do the family laundry.
The outbreak of diseases like cholera complicates this already difficult daily routine. The hospital overflows with patients.
My child had diarrhea and vomited a lot. At home, we have no water or toilets. Many children in the neighborhood are sick. I was worried to see him weakened, so I came to the hospital. He received treatment and is doing better.
On average, Doctors Without Borders teams are treating around 100 new cases of cholera a day.
Well, to Kenya now, which has increasingly become a top destination for people from across the region. More and more fans are heading over to invest in their futures. Olivia Bizo takes a look for us.
At first glance, this Nairobi suburb looks like any other. But its market tells a different story. Most of the stalls here are run by Congolese traders. Rejoice lives in Katangela, a neighborhood locals call Little Kinshasa. Like many others, he left the DRC due to instability and decided to start his business here in Nairobi.
I felt investing here was safer than back home. There are many Congolese here, so I had hoped that this would be a good place for business.
Last year, Kenya announced that East African community citizens no longer need to pay for work permits. But in a country where over 80% of businesses operate in the informal sector, competition is fierce.
20 years ago, we were around a few hundreds of traders, but then right now we are more than 1,000. In the beginning, we were basically just Kenyans, but then now there is people from different nationalities. Burundi, there is Sudan, there is Uganda, there is Tanzania.
The policy is also attracting investors. In just 1 year, foreign investment in Kenya has more than doubled, creating new economic opportunities.
I've received very many calls from all cadres of people, low income to serious investors, people from all over East Africa trying to see whether they can get a work permit in Kenya. So in the last 1 year, I think it has been a change from the previous years. We never used to receive calls from people from Tanzania, Burundi coming to Kenya.
As the region's largest economy, Kenya hopes free movement will help boost the country's business growth even more.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.